Understanding is the
Right.
key to emotional intelligence as well as intelligence for that matter, right? If you don't understand something, you don't sound intelligent. And there's a lot of people who don't understand a lot of what this that leads to, things that are being said that are not very intelligent sounding because that's, emotional intelligence eventually leads to intelligent, wise behavior. I mean, it can be in a relationship, it can be in society, it can be in a workplace. You see it everywhere. And I have had the pleasure of experiencing it in all three locations.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the Patriots Table. If you guys tuned in the last week, you understand why we're having this topic. So we're going to talk about emotional intelligence this week. And yeah, if you watched last week's episode, which I encourage everybody to watch, you'll understand why. So we us three have talked about this topic numerous times, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say this is one thing that's just lacking in society, period, in the world, and especially in Western culture. That's just we really need some more emotional intelligence in the world. And I mean, we break this down. I mean, what is emotional intelligence? And I think in a nutshell, it's just the ability to understand and manage your own emotions. Um,
And those of others.
and those of others. It
Yeah.
includes stuff like self-awareness,
Mhm.
self-regulation, empathy, simple, just basic social skills, internal motivation. Um, I think it's
So
a crucial
in a really
component.
broad sense, yeah. Workplace skills. I'm going to start with a disclaimer here that I may have not displayed full emotional intelligence in the last episode. It was really hard. I tried. But it's really funny you should mention that episode because I actually got a few personal messages which I had not received before, saying that that was one of our good episodes, and I think it was good that we did that. It was necessary, even though we had a hard time keeping our emotional intelligence in check.
Well, I mean, when things happen, things are said, and I think I do think it was good. I mean, we'd been talking on that topic for months, so brought somebody on to, you know, speak on the other side. But we're a couple minutes into the episode, and I totally didn't, introduce my lovely wife Andrea, which she's not really a. Is Andrea a guest at this point, or is she just part of the show
I
that
am a
comes
guest.
on?
I think
I
she's
think I
like
think
been on there almost the same amount of time that I have been, so I think she's part of the show.
I kind of think she's part of the show at this point. But we couldn't do an episode on emotional intelligence without her. So I think she's
Yes.
one of the most emotionally intelligent people I know. She's definitely in the top three. So, but with that, Andrea,
Yeah,
anything you
to
want to add
add,
on that?
yes, of course. Um, I think another aspect of emotional intelligence it is responding over reacting. And I think that's a big difference when it comes to communicating with others and people and life situations.
Responding over reacting, which is, I mean, I think there's emotional intelligence is a very broad term, right? There's
Uh-huh.
so many different aspects of emotional intelligence. So if we zero in just on that point, responding over reacting, that kind of hits a very big thing on why do people respond or why do people react instead of responding? People normally react because are can they are controlled by their emotions. They not or whether they were never taught to regulate their emotions, they don't know how to regulate their emotions, but their emotions rule them, they don't rule their emotions, or they're not able to step outside of their emotions. So somebody who with any level of emotional intelligence can recognize, oh, I'm feeling this, that doesn't dictate how I'm going to respond to the situation or handle the situation.
Can I add something to that though? I mean, like, so, yeah, definitely overreacting, but I think underreacting to an important situation is equally important. I mean, like
Mhm.
that also shows a good, it's a level of emotional intelligence lacking in people, and you can see that a lot,
Hmm.
just as much as you
Dissociation,
see.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like, people act like, I mean, a classic example is what's going on. And we've been talking about this ad nauseum on this show. I mean, like, about the Gaza situation. I mean, there's a bunch of people out there who act like nothing's happening. I mean, that is a definite lack of empathy, a lack of, this is a shutting down of a certain part of their emotions. I mean, they're driven by something that is not in their control, and it's not, emotional intelligence. So I think it goes both ways. I mean, it's if you're
Mhm. Mhm.
overreacting as well as underreacting in certain cases where so you have to, the key again, I mean, Andrea and I can attest to this. I mean, both naturopaths. I mean, in holistic world, everything has to be in balance, so it's a balance of both. I think
Mhm.
that's what it, kind of boils down to.
No, absolutely. I mean, and like you said, that's a lack of empathy in that regard, and it seems like
And understanding. I mean, that's the key. I mean, understanding is
right.
the key to emotional intelligence as well as intelligence, for that matter, right? I mean, like, if you don't understand
Mhm.
something, you don't sound intelligent. And there's a lot of people who don't understand a lot of what they're saying, and then that leads to things that are being said that are not very intelligent sounding, because that's emotional intelligence eventually leads to intelligent, wise behavior. I mean, it can be in a relationship, it can be in society, it can be in a workplace. You see it everywhere. And I have had the pleasure of experiencing it in all three locations. I mean, like, workplace emotional intelligence, I think they should all have a mandatory course for everybody. I mean, if
Mhm.
you ever worked in a corporate, I mean, I know Trey, you probably can relate to this, and so can you, Andrea. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, like, people who don't have the capacity.
Restaurant business,
Oh
the
yeah.
restaurant business, okay? Like,
Mhm.
you're getting screamed at by a stranger for a taco not being ready within 10
Yeah.
minutes, and it went to 12
Mhm. I was just
minutes.
gonna say that probably
Like,
comes from all
why
the
are you screaming?
customers. Yeah, and I've seen that. I
Or
mean, I
managers
have.
too. I mean, managers too. It's on both sides.
Yeah. So you can see it kind of permeates into all aspects of our lives, and you cannot really put it into a like a tunnel vision, like a silo, and then say, like, okay, these
Mhm.
are the things that are emotionally intelligent driven. It's not. I mean, everything about our lives driven by your capacity to control your emotions, which
Mhm.
some philosophies will actually call it by different names, but it's the same thing, right?
Mhm.
But that
And
would
I would
also
add
point
to
to
that.
just the truth, though, because you're talking about intelligence on the topic. Sometimes emotional intelligence is being able to say, actually, I don't know enough on this
Hmm.
topic to have an
Absolutely, yes.
opinion or speak to that.
Yep.
And, in your emotions too, this is all about recognizing the truth. I'm a I'm a person, I'm a human having a very human experience, which is an emotion, and the truth is it doesn't dictate how I react or respond to handle a situation. So if you have the truth centered around everything, and the truth isn't biased, the truth is the truth, and if you're going off that, whether it's off of your emotions, a situation, a topic, it seems kind of a common denominator because like you said, it's a pendulum on both sides, whether you're not reacting or overreactive. If you're kind of just going off the truth, like let's use the Israel Gaza situation, the truth is there are innocent people getting slaughtered over there, and
Mhm.
any empathetic person, the truth is they would have a response to that on something so inhumane and horrible happening. So I feel like there's just that's a good gauge on just emotional intelligence as a whole
uh,
is the truth to a situation. And Andrea, I know you got a point as well.
I do. I was gonna say that doesn't mean either that you ignore your emotions or you stuff them all down and pretend they don't exist. That isn't emotional intelligence either, because then you're just denying these emotions. So like that has to come into play too, because you'll hear people, well, that person's really strong and tough. but they never self-reflect on their emotions or even tap into them. And then you have someone that's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm fine with my emotions, but they're actually just hiding them and stuffing them down all the time.
I think one of the key components of emotional intelligence is being self-aware, right?
Hmm.
So if you're not
Yeah.
self-aware, then you sometimes you don't even know like what you know or what you don't know. I mean, I run into this a lot. I mean, like you try to explain something to somebody that they are not aware of, which something that I may be aware of, and then they just cannot handle that. I mean, because they think that they get very defensive, and it's like, and I think we saw that uh, with the whole nuclear situation last time.
Yeah.
Uh, it was kind
Well,
of sad because
well, and I want to zero in on that point right there. That is something that I see quite common in people who have very, very little to no emotional intelligence is the unwillingness to even hear somebody else
yeah,
talk on a subject where you have to try and silence them, talk over them. That's so common. Like if you have any type of emotional intelligence, I would say you'd want to welcome a difference of opinion or to even be proven wrong or a different aspect of something that you might not have considered because and to your point, Ravi, that's part of self-reflection and
hmm
self-awareness too, is being like,
yeah,
oh wow, yeah, never considered that before, or I didn't know that aspect of it, so let me. But if you're unwilling to hear any type of opinion, you're gonna shoot it down
hmm
immediately. And I think we heard that a lot last week with
yeah, yeah, and it's kind of
oh, give me
hard.
proof, be quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard. So when and I'll be the first one to admit it. I mean, sometimes we as humans, I mean, I don't think anybody is 100% all the time, displaying everything perfectly. I mean, we are perfectly imperfect, and that's fine. Uh, the problem is when it occurs, continuously on a like a repeat cycle with the same people, the same crowd, the same group of
Hmm.
people. I mean, it becomes, you can see that. And right now, I mean, I was just thinking about this today. I mean, I'm going through social media, briefly glancing through it while I'm working, and I can see that there are three groups of people who are trying very hard to convince another group of what their beliefs are, which are obviously wrong. I mean, it's obviously propaganda. I mean, the whole thing with this CDC changing the wording on their website. So there's a bunch of
Hmm.
people who are probably losing their, like they're frightened because, their whole livelihood is at stake now because the truth seems to be finally coming out, and they're actually publishing what is true instead of what they had out there, which was totally assumed, reality. And then there's the people, the influencers who are getting paid to be on social media to push the Israeli agenda
Hmm.
nonstop. And then we have you know, the group of people that we were part of during, the last 4 or 5 years, who are constantly trying to, like downplay what is happening in this country politically because they want to
Hmm.
stay in their own bubble and, protect their own, leader, king, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't care. But uh, these three groups are like out there constantly, and they don't see what they're doing, nor do they see what's really happening. They're completely shut off from from reality, and they just want to keep pushing the agenda, hoping that somebody will, and they probably know that humans, if they hear the same thing over and over again, tend to somewhat start to believe it. And this is what the
Hmm.
media has done, for decades now, or ever since they were, came into being. Uh, is to control the people's thinking process. And when that happens, you lose sight of any emotional intelligence you can have because your intelligence is now driven by somebody else on the outside that controls it. So you lose all those key components of self-awareness, empathy, understanding, reliance, and how to manage your emotions. All of that stuff goes out the window.
Well, and it's like, you can see it on social media is a really good gauge to find out who's emotionally intelligent or not really quickly. Um, but instead of having a conversation, it leads with outbursts or name calling or, this spiraling path of, oh, well, I'm angry right now, and well, you're the cause of it. And it's always like there's no self-awareness. It's almost like you're blamed for their
Uh-huh. Yep.
behavior and their outbursts. And it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't have screamed until I couldn't breathe if you didn't make me mad. Well, that doesn't justify your behavior. Like you
Right.
have no awareness. You're just blurting whatever comes out of your mouth based on an emotional response.
Or they don't
I will
stay
trigger
on
people, like,
the
to be honest.
topic. Well,
Hmm.
well that's a sign right there. If somebody can get triggered, and then you'll notice the people on social media, they will either never answer the question or even respond to a point being made. They'll have to bring up something else to make them feel right.
Yeah.
And that's again, that's not, there's zero self-reflection there because, oh, uh, my argument's not standing on its own merit, so let me go grab something out of my tool chest, talking points that I've heard that make me feel right again and make me feel in control, and you can, if you want to see emotionally unintelligent people, can look at children and just see how it's essentially the same behavior, just it might look a little different, but it's the exact same behavior. Children do that all the time.
Mhm.
You'll tell a
Because they're
child
not,
something and
yeah,
and
for
they
different
won't
reasons.
like it, so they'll bring up something completely
Yeah.
irrelevant to make them
Hmm.
feel in control of the situation again, or
But
they'll
children
pout
have an
and whine.
excuse.
Right, right. I mean, they're children. Children are going to be children.
Hmm.
Children are looking to their parents to teach them emotional
Yeah. Yeah.
intelligence and emotional regulation and stuff like that. And unfortunately, majority of people in society didn't have parents to teach them that.
Uh-huh.
And they're either have to be self-aware enough to be like, yeah, I didn't learn this. I need to figure this out. Or, they did have parents that taught them that, and they're in.
And
Once you get out of that, and
I will get crucified for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because, that's who I am.
I'm here for it.
Children for children to be emotionally intelligent, the parents need to be first emotionally intelligent, and they need to be. I
Hmm.
mean, I can tell you that this whole new generation of parenting and their techniques are not creating a lot of emotionally intelligent, children. I mean, they're coming out not emotionally intelligent but entitled because that's what they
Mhm.
are being taught. Because like I mean, like you guys are of a different generation than I am, but the reason that I can see these things and I can handle and manage my emotions is because we were raised differently. And you can ask anybody in the who was raised in the 50s and 60s, they'll tell you the same story. Now that doesn't mean that 100% of the people in that era became emotionally intelligent as well. And I can already see Andrea starting to
I was
tell
just
me.
gonna add, actually, it was a compliment. Actually, it's a compliment. It's a compliment. I think Eastern society has this down way more
Yes,
than Western
that's
culture.
what I was going
I
to
do
say.
see a
Yeah.
rampant issue
Mhm.
in Western society, particularly, and even some of the boomer, exennials, millennials. Okay, it's all of it. But there is a big gap in this in a couple generations before me. Like, it's just like we were taught to be tough and all the stuff, but we forgot that emotions do matter. And then you
Uh-huh.
have people that are growing up to dissociate and cope, and well, they can't handle their emotions. Emotions are bad.
Yeah.
So that
well,
And
imbalance is a major problem.
I will tell you that, I wouldn't say all of the West though, because I travel and I have seen,
Hmm.
things in European countries. They're different too. I
Hmm.
mean, you will not see the kind of stuff that happens here in some of the European countries. I mean, like, the French have like the best behaved kids. I mean, like, and they're intelligent. I mean, they beat us in a lot of things, academically as well as, in the arena of emotional intelligence. And here, I mean, like, we spend billions of dollars, and now you have this social emotional learning that they're trying to
Hmm.
teach because the parents aren't doing such a hard job. Now the government has taken over, which is never a good idea.
Disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster
Disaster.
because now you have people who are themselves the teachers who are struggling to teach kids who emotional intelligence when they themselves are struggling with it. So it's like and we have this notion that all of the things that our kids need to learn to survive in the world needs to come from school. It doesn't.
No.
Many of them, to your point, Andrea, in the Eastern cultures, the parents teach kids all of these things. We had very little to learn
And
from school other
homeschoolers.
than academics, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
Yeah, and
think,
I
you know,
just
that
think sorry.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say, like, just put a word in, I think the communities that actually homeschool their kids do a much better job. And that's why you can see, I can take my kid to public school things and, I'll always get the comment that, she's a very nice kid. That's not because, it just happened magically. It's because we teach the child how to,
Hmm.
interact and react with people. Whereas the other kids are like, into bullying other children. And, even she and she's capable of like answering back. Like, one of the things she does at school is that she goes to this art program at the public school in the evenings after school. And she's the only kid without a backpack because all the other kids they come straight from school with their backpacks. And when somebody asks her, why is her backpack? And that conversation, I mean, I don't want to take time on the show to, say, but that went pretty well because she was able to handle that and then also answer the questions in a way that the kid was then starting to answer, like, what's homeschooling like, and then go along that route without like
Hmm.
going into a shell and, becoming afraid to even go back there. So that's an important skill that kids need to learn at home, not in school, not because of their friends, but at home. So if
Well,
you're
and
listening
to
in, yeah,
even add to that, a thing that is how you would teach your child this is you have to lead by example. You have to set the tone
sure.
of your family. Because if you're a parent that's screaming and yelling all the time or avoiding, coping, whatever, your child isn't going to learn by you talking all day. They're going to learn by your
Mhm.
example and what they're seeing you do. Or, there's times where people are like, oh, my kid's acting this way. They're reactive, this and that. And it's like, but they don't know how to regulate their emotions and you do. So you need to hold space for them and you need to lead. You can't expect your child to do something that you cannot do yourself.
Well, and I think
I
there's
will
you
I
see
will
on
agree. I
two.
will there is a again a fine balance in that. I mean, like, you cannot let do I mean, like, so when I hear that, I mean, like, I see all these general parenting groups where they let their kids do
Oh,
whatever,
yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah, we
so
can
that's
jump
an
off cliffs
extreme. I
and
mean,
yeah.
yeah, you
Mhm.
have to have a certain level of I mean, the word I'm going to use is authority, but I don't know if that's the right word or not. But I mean,
Containment.
the kid needs to know that there are certain things that your parents are in control of. I mean, they're not to cross those boundaries. I mean, so, it's a constant battle of a balance again, right? I mean, you have to maintain that balance. I mean,
Well,
their
it's
emotions are valid.
like you have to have firm boundaries with your children, like to teach them. You can't just have them, oh, my kids, like I've heard this in the whole so-called gentle parenting, because there's like 60 kinds now. I don't know if you picked up on that. But
I
like
have no
your
more
kid,
knowledge of it.
you're letting your kid run towards the road and you're not going to tell them no because we don't use the word no. Their life's in danger. That's not parenting. That's
Yeah.
dangerous. They don't know
Uh,
what's best for them. They are they can't decide if they're going to stop and not go in the road. Like you wouldn't do that. That's not even common sense.
Well,
yeah.
there's a difference between, and you see this, and again, it's the extreme one way or the extreme another way. You have
That,
a generation that was raised by a lot of parents that said emotions weren't you weren't allowed to have them. You had to act a certain way. You had to essentially be a mannequin person and only do what's acceptable. So you suppress everything, and as a lot of people are figuring out that doesn't work. Your stuff's going to come out whether it's in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. And then you have the other side now where you have gentle parenting where it's like, well, you can express, but you don't know what to do with your emotion. It's just have your emotions, be expressive.
Well,
We're not going to do anything, but children need to learn that it's okay. Their emotions are okay. Their emotions
uh,
are not too much, but they also need taught what to do with those emotions and how to handle those emotions. That's the key component is no on both sides nobody was taught what to do with these emotions and how to handle and how to regulate those emotions. So it's either you have them and you're just running rampant with them, and because their parents weren't allowed to express them, so now they're just expressing them like crazy with, like Andrea said, with no containment for those, or you have the other side where you're just not allowed to have them at all, and now you have you had a bunch of people who were very angry or resentful and all these other things. So there has to be a balance in between where you have containment for the emotions, acknowledging that the child, yeah, you're allowed to have that emotion, but we don't act that way, or we don't lash out.
Well,
We don't,
and I
if we got three boys, what do boys do? They when they get angry, they like to hit or yell or throw something,
Uh-huh.
it's like, no, you can be angry. I understand that you're angry. I can understand why you would be angry. That would make me angry too. But we don't do that. We don't
Yeah.
hit somebody. We don't yell. So there's both sides to it.
And I think that comes, I can circle back to what Andrea said about the people in the eastern part of the world, or, somewhere on these Southeast Asia, Asia. I mean, they can have, it's because they are taught how to be mindful. And that's what's missing in our culture in the West here, because we don't have that built into our, you know, social structure. Because the majority of
mm,
people here are either on a told how to do or believe how to do, basis, right? So it's
mhm.
not a being mindful of kind of basis. That's what you need. You have to be able to be mindful in order to reflect, self-reflect, and do all that stuff. If you cannot control, I mean, if you're not taught how to be mindful at a young age, you don't. I mean, so now comes in the Western, the Eastern cultures practices, which may or may not be religious, but like things like meditation, being quiet, being able to control your mind, and these things are rejected in the West because they are considered satanic, evil, and I mean like even
Voodoo.
yoga, I mean voodoo. I mean I hear this. When I hear that, I mean I'm like, you poor fools. I mean you have no idea what you're missing, because that is what creates the framework for emotional intelligence. Because you're taught to be mindful. I mean, like kids as young as 6, 7, 8, they go to a, like a Sunday school or a Buddhist. I mean, even the churches, I mean, have practiced meditation in that part of the world. I used to live in front of a Catholic church for like 26 years of my life. I know that they do it. There's, none of this stuff happens here on a regular basis. That's what you need. I mean, you need that in schools, in homes, so that children will learn how to control their emotions in a
Well,
mindful
and
way.
we have it's a rampant problem though now because with the age of technology and like we've talked about this before, Ravi, in the society, is there's so many things to distract you. And now you
Oh,
have
yeah.
parents and people throwing themselves in front of a phone and scrolling. I just shared an article today about the brain damage this is causing. Oh, my
Uh-huh.
kid's crying and annoying me. Here's a tablet. Here's the
Yep.
TV. And like so
Yep.
they don't have time to be mindful because their mind's always distracted. And this continues into adulthood unless they make a different choice.
Yep.
People are actually really surprised when we go out with our children and they don't have a screen in front of them, whether that be at a especially at like
Uh-huh.
restaurants. Because I mean, I see it's very common now. You have a kid under 10 years old
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
in any type of establishment where you have to sit for a period of time, and it's here's a screen, and even in a lot of cases, big headphones, like shutting them out
Uh-huh.
from the world. And I mean, mindfulness wasn't even really a term that is real. It's not a common term
Yeah.
in Western, and especially, I don't
Uh-huh.
want to say for all Western countries because I haven't been to all of us, but in America, it is not the only thing I really heard growing up was, oh, be mindful of your surroundings. And that was
Uh-huh.
it. There was no
Yeah.
practicing mindfulness, which is, I don't know where the whole religious thing comes in with making it
Well, because,
a spiritual thing, because even if you look up the definition of mindfulness, it's just a practicing of being fully present and aware of your thoughts, your
yeah.
feelings, any bodily sensations, and your surroundings. Like
Yeah.
that is it.
Yeah.
That has to me has nothing to do with even with religion or
Mm. No, not at
God and
all.
different beliefs in
Yeah.
God. That's just,
I
again,
mean,
just paying
take for
attention to what's going
example,
on around you and within you. It's a simple thing.
so that's a different, I mean, like, so being mindful of your surroundings is a different mindfulness than what we're talking about as
Mhm.
far as, looking at your being mindful of what you're doing, right? I mean, like, or saying or thinking. That's a different, whole different game there. The thing is, I mean, people pray here. I mean, when you're in prayer, you are mindful of that, right? I mean, you're mindful of the presence of whatever. I mean, your thoughts. I mean, you're that's the same thing we're talking about. It's just a different name. Just because you sit in a corner and you know
But I'll
assume a
have to add
position
to that,
doesn't change it.
Robbie. As I've observed in society, and I talk to people of many different Christian categories, and all that, we they don't even some people don't even realize what prayer is for. They think prayer is asking God to fix
Asking.
everything for them, and instead of what is actually good for them, what is right for them, what's inside their mind and what's inside their hearts. I don't even think we actually really know, in the majority of people, what prayer is, because
Yeah.
you're being taught to pray from a point of like, well, I want this God, or I want this and this and that. But none of that is about being mindful, right? That's about you
No.
getting your way.
Yeah, and also the fact that we are, I mean, like in the Western cultures, and especially in Christianity and some of the other religions, like they are specifically taught that they are inferior, right? I mean, it's a
Hmm.
fear-based inferior, complex is driven in them as children, like you're a sinner.
Hmm.
I mean, that's how they start the
Yeah,
game.
like you only
Uh,
pray when you sin. Like what kind of,
yeah.
like you're
Not
only
only
allowed to
that, I mean,
connect
like
with the divine when you're horrible. Like what kind of precedent is that
yeah,
being
yeah, yeah.
taught?
I mean, so this is the difference between the Eastern philosophies, where I mean, you are in control of your mind and your consciousness, everything. That is a whole different, way of looking at it, and that gives you the strength and the courage and the what you need to get the job done. And then you develop those skills. Whereas here, I mean, if you constantly think like, oh, I'm just a poor old sinner on the side. I mean, I got to do all these things to go to heaven or whatever. And then it's not driven to make yourself emotionally stronger or being mindful because
Mhm.
you can do it. And
Well,
I
like
see this a
even
lot too.
Well, even like, well, Jesus even said the kingdom of heaven was within you. Everyone seems to ignore that in the Bible,
Yep.
you know? And then it's really probably going to be corny and silly to say this, but a movie that gave a great example of how prayer doesn't work that way was Bruce Almighty. Remember when he's sitting there
Mhm.
getting all the prayer requests and people are asking for no rain, but they want rain, and he's trying to answer them all, and the whole world's like in
Yeah.
chaos because everybody got their way into disaster.
Yeah.
I thought that was just like a really good example how things don't work that way. Like you can't be like I've told Trey this, but you can't be praying that something bad happens to your enemy over here. Like that's not
Mhm.
prayer. Like that's not good. Like and you're
Yeah.
taught
Yeah.
that in some church circles. Oh, you better pray
Mhm.
that something happens to your enemies, and it's like what?
Or the only way to get God's attention is to recognize how much of a piece of shit you are. Like, or oh, I know I don't ask for much, but if you could just do this one thing
Mhm.
for me, this one poor, it's like, wow. I mean, it comes across as you have to, it keeps people trapped, right? You're
Yeah.
gonna stay
Yeah.
trapped and dependent on this for the rest of your life and never be able to obtain anything. And I'm gonna be so happy if God gives me these little scraps,
Mhm.
these
And it's
little.
funny that it's always material things people ask for, right? Has anybody
Hmm.
prayed like,
For
let's
peace
stop
in your
Israel
life.
from bombing Palestine? Right now. I doubt
No,
it.
well, at least I see a lot of stuff. It's like, well, don't pray the dangerous prayers. Don't pray
Yeah.
for to learn patience or love or these other things. It's like,
Or
because then
yoga
you're gonna go through. Well, yeah. But then they're like, well, then you might
and
go through
listening.
something hard, and you don't want to go
You
through
know
something
how many
hard.
times, okay, I have to say over the years of deciding to be outspoken and write and Andrea was pretty naive at probably 2019 phase of that stuff. But I would write about yoga and how much yoga changed my life and breathing and then you're literally gonna get possessed by the devil. Okay, Sharon. Like, really? Like, no, I promise I haven't been possessed by the devil yet. I can go try harder if you think that's real. I promise you that's never happened. It's just like, where do you come up with this stuff? And then, you get this long article of opinion. You're like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I'm just
Well,
telling
that's
you my
because
experience, and you're sending me
that
some boat
yeah.
of stupidity.
That's because we
Yeah, I got stories.
personification of everything, right? I mean, the devil doesn't have, he's not red and doesn't have horns and has a, whatever, and he's in a fiery pit in down below. I mean, he lives among
Honestly, I
us.
mean, if you want to talk about that too, like, the devil is not this like, people look
Yeah.
for this, like, devil that's in the bushes lurking out to come get
Hmm.
them and everything in the world, but it's like your biggest enemy and the devil is the things you refuse to recognize in yourself that are going to destroy
It's in
you.
your mind.
There's no
Yeah.
bigger enemy. Yeah, like, so people often will create these boogeyman like yoga. Yoga's so bad. And it's like, have you self-reflected lately on why you would even think this way? You're looking for an enemy that doesn't exist. You're creating one because you don't
Yeah.
wanna look at yourself, or you have been lied to for years, or you're listening to someone's opinion. I mean, it's
Well,
And
if you
crazy.
want
speaking
to
of
look at yoga
movies,
as demonic, you would need to look at even like working out, like being super like, and I'm not just
mhm,
talking about going for a run. I'm just active weightlifting because there's breathing techniques needed with serious weightlifting. If you're going into competition and you're like strongman, like there's stuff that you have to do to be able to do this with breath work and
mhm,
certain movements and anything. Like if you're gonna say that yoga is some demonic possessed thing, then you need to just cut out really being
Shouldn't breathe
intentional.
anymore.
Yeah, you need to cut out and being intentional with a lot of things, and that can go for so many things from working
yeah,
out to even in like I it sounds a little nerdy, but just being an F1 race car driver with the level of G-force and to go that fast and be a professional driver like that, the amount of breathing, the focus and everything, it's all it's all kind of the same thing. So to say you're gonna get possessed by the devil by doing this is it's very immature. It's very immature
yeah.
and shows a lack of
It's a
awareness
misplaced,
of the world.
it's a misplaced awareness. And then speaking of movies, I mean, Andrea, you just made me think of one, a really good movie about heaven and hell in those terms was the Robin Williams movie, and Cuba Gooding Jr. in What Dreams May Come. I love that
Mm.
movie. I mean, it took me like 3 attempts of watching it consistently to get the message, what they were trying to say. It was very well done, but it was also a little subtle in their, explanation. But it's, I think I might have mentioned it to you guys, but
Oh, I
it's
watched
a
it. It's really
wonderful,
good.
yeah,
That was
it's a
really good.
wonderful movie. Yeah. So
I
yeah, I
like a
mean,
lot
like,
of Robin Williams movies. He's always in deep movies.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was a great actor. I'm really sad that what happened to him, but yeah. Again, I mean, like, if he was trained in being mindful, these things. This is the reason why I think a lot of people in this country have a lot of anxiety, depression, because they have no self control over their emotions, and they, on top of that, other things too. But the you need to have, and people will again crucify me for saying this, but this is why a lot of people don't have these things, in other parts of the world where we have a much higher level of, emotional capability of handling things and being self-aware. So it's an important skill to develop, and and now I think it's becoming it's becoming obvious enough that I think people are realizing that's missing here, which is why I think they're trying to implement this stuff in schools, but they're going around about the wrong way with the wrong people. If it was done correctly, I think social emotional intelligence, if it's not being taught at home, being taught at school is not really a bad idea if done properly. And even like the Cleveland Clinic, I mean, you can look it up. I mean, they have extensive articles and they talk about it. The integrative medical center there. I mean, like they help people with it. I mean, it's a known thing, but I think it's a little it's a little too late to just come out with all that and expect people to change overnight. It's a process, and
Mhm.
you can probably relate to this. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. If you were
No.
never taught it before, it takes a while. and it's a learning process. It's a journey. Uh,
Hmm.
you cannot expect it to learn how to be emotionally intelligent overnight, or in 2 months. I mean, you can't put a timeline on it, basically. So
No.
that,
And I think like you can see the ramifications in society. I was reading an article today and I was comparing some notes, in my practice, and it was like I was shocked to see that depression was like the number one illness for women.
mhm.
And it's
Oh
like
yeah,
not all depression, like, we talk about depression all day. And how do we fix depression? I'm thinking if someone's mind's racing nonstop all the time with all the worst things that are happening or their stresses and stuff and have no way to turn that down and figure it out, couldn't that manifest as being extremely depressed and hating your life and feeling hopeless and helpless in life? Does anyone
I
look at
mean,
that before they throw pills at people?
no. And if you think about it, I mean, like, I'm sure you've seen the little video of how men's brains and women's brain work. Uh, it's a little
Yeah.
different, right? I mean, we have those little boxes,
We're
and
thinking
you
about
guys have,
tomorrow's dinner while you guys are talking this
yeah,
conversation right
I mean,
now.
like, yeah, you
Honesty.
guys have like this ball of wires inside your head that's every wire is active and it's firing everywhere. And then on top of that, I mean, I think Trey, we've talked about, and I think Andrew, you were on that show too. I mean, we talked about toxic masculinity and like, there are no men to support them really.
Mhm.
And women are actually like hating men too. I mean, I see these posts on social
Oh,
media
yes.
about
Both
women.
of the pendulum. The pendulum
It's
goes both
like,
ways.
I'm like, yeah, you're not going to attract anyone to support you and your emotions if you act like this and say stuff like that, because, you're driving men away. But I don't get involved in those conversations because, I don't want I don't want to be the bringer of bad news to these people, but they don't even realize what they're doing. And that's a problem because, you guys with all your, being mommy, being wife, being, professional, being this and that and everything else on top of it. I mean, there are instances where if you cannot control those things and you don't have self awareness of what is happening around you, it can get really overwhelming. And it
Hmm.
doesn't take much to, walk over that cliff edge and, become depressed. And then, of course, now there's a term clinically depressed, which is basically there so that they can throw drugs at you, and drugs don't help because
Well,
it's
and
not
people
a
are always talking about like postpartum depressions. Like when you
Mhm.
really look and view in on the lens, it's lack of support.
Yeah,
It's lack of
yeah,
community, in the
yep,
society that's kind of taken away or taken for granted, or it's not given us an unconditional space of
uh-huh,
love and care and affection, or husbands aren't taught how to be that for their wives. And it
yeah,
goes both ways, but like that's a big one. Everyone's like, oh, it's the highest it's ever been. And I'm thinking, because nobody is learning how to actually support each other in the ways that are
yep,
needed. And or you're sitting with a therapist all day, which don't get me wrong, they have a place, but talking about your feelings and trauma over and over again with no solution, what is that
yeah,
actually going to do for you in the long run?
yeah. It doesn't do anything. I mean, you can see, like, like you said, I mean, it's a profession, and it's sometimes it's good. I mean, like to get you on track. But I don't think
Hmm.
those people have been trained in to say and do the right things to raise the level of emotional intelligence either. I mean, they are basically trained to get that person out of that, wherever they're in and prescribe
It's
medication.
to
I
bring
mean,
bring awareness to the problem, not fix the
yeah,
problem. They're very good at
I hate
getting
that
somebody
term,
to
like
see
awareness.
awareness.
I mean, we bring awareness to everything. I mean, like, well, I think we're aware enough. We need solutions, right? I mean, we
Right.
No,
we
and
want to bring
honestly,
awareness.
in some instances, I feel like in therapy, modern therapy, there's therapists out there that are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the modern low scheme therapists, they're almost making you the victim and reinforcing that victimization and giving you an
Uh-huh.
identity and sucking you into what's destroying you and saying, you're going to be like this the rest of your life, or you're this, you're that, but there's nothing beyond that. Then that person's left to do what? Look at themselves all day with no solution.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And, I mean, the reason they were there is because they didn't understand how to find the solution. I mean, the solution is, again,
mhm,
not easy, but, it's out there, it's available. So, if you have the strength to do it, I mean, you can, but we are very quick to, I mean, as with everything else, I mean, if you look at health, people want quick fixes, right?
mhm,
You and I both have the experience where, people come to us, 50 years of abusing their, systems they want to fix for, yesterday.
yes.
Doesn't work that way. And the mind is even
Mhm,
worse because you program your mind a certain way and your mind gets programmed, deprogramming the mind is really a difficult task. So that's why
Mhm.
it's important to program the mind correctly with the right information and the right tools to deal with what happens as you grow older at a very young age. And this needs to
Mhm.
happen in the home. And I
And
Well,
don't
and
you
I
really
brought
like
up a
know.
really good point, Ravi, that I think is such a it really points to somebody with emotional intelligence. Being able to rewire your brain to perceive the world differently, think differently, is that is really not an easy thing to do.
Oh,
And
no.
there's this lady that talks about it very well, Teal Swan, that is being you it isn't something that you just go, okay, I want to believe this now. Like you really have to dissect
Uh-huh.
something, a belief. You have to look at it from 1,000 different angles and come up with things to yourself to prove why this isn't the case, why this isn't truth, why this isn't reality. And that's part of that self-reflection, but that's on a it's on an insanely deep level to
Yeah.
change a core belief that you have, whether that be personality, uh, spiritually, religiously, whatever it is, you have to hit that thing from 1,000 different angles and really come up with solid proof, evidence to yourself as to why this isn't serving you or why this isn't right. And most people can't even question their beliefs, let alone do the work to
Uh-huh.
actually change a core belief that is wrong or is no longer serving them. And that to me that might just be the ultimate sign of emotional intelligence, being able to do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the problem that I see a lot here is that even if you are trying to do it, you will have 50 people telling you otherwise. Because
mhm.
our society is such that if somebody is trying to climb out of a hole, there are 50 people they're out there trying to drag you back into that because that threatens them, right? So
Mhm.
their worldview is threatened by you stepping out of your old worldview and trying to become more emotionally intelligent and being self-aware. I mean, all of these things are very threatening to, and sometimes it's family. It's not even like outsiders. I mean, like, the people who are immediately around you will start seeing these changes within you if you start doing it, and they'll try to bring you down. And very often they succeed because, for one, you're not probably taught how to do it, from a young age, so you're discovering it yourself, and then you start second
Mhm.
guessing because I'll just pick the name that you mentioned. I mean, I've listened to Tia. I like her work. Uh, is she telling me the truth, or is the 50 people that I grew up with telling me the truth? What is going on here? So now there's conflict. And as soon as
Mhm.
conflict enters, I mean, your self awareness is shot to pieces. I mean, you're now back into this pendulum, swinging back and forth, wondering if you're doing the right thing or not. And that's where I think you need the courage, you need the understanding, and you need somebody who can actually guide you along the right path that you can trust.
And
That's a
I
very important thing.
and there's a movie that points this out really well. If you look at the deep meaning, it's called Snowpiercer, and it's essentially people in a train, and it's the last of
Oh yeah.
humanity on a train. And towards the back of the cart, you have the scum of society that are literally being fed mulched up bugs in nasty bars. And on the front of the train, you got the social elite. It's like the Hunger Games, but on a train. And you literally have these people in the rear end that's like defends their way of life because they want their bug bars. No, don't
Well,
Uh-huh.
and they
don't mess
believe
don't
that's
mess.
their way of life. They
They
believe in those
believe that that's
fantasies.
that's as good as it's going to get. That's their reality, that this is their life. And you had a couple people who's like, "No, let's get out of here. Let's like we don't
Uh-huh.
deserve to live this way. Life can be better." And people got mad at them. Like,
Uh-huh.
duh,
Uh-huh.
don't mess up what we got going on here. We're happy with our bug bars, like and that's literally what it is. People will hold on to something familiar even if it's broken, even if it's not
Yeah.
serving, even if it's keeping them in pain, because familiar pain is more comfortable
Uh-huh.
than and anything unfamiliar change, any change.
And sometimes the fact that, I mean, like your broken self may actually serve someone better than your unbroken self. And that can be the biggest threat to some, like those people in the train. I mean, that's what's going on, right? So, I mean, if they had benefits from the fact that you were broken, then all of a sudden, when you're not broken, those benefits go away. And sometimes that happens. But again, I mean, like you have to focus on developing your emotional intelligence and not, and then, because that's the first step. You cannot go and fix the emotional intelligence of other people without fixing your own first.
Mm-hmm.
Andrea's smiling because she's probably has something to add to that. But I mean, that's a fact, though, right? I mean, that's how I figured it out. I mean, like, and was very long ago, many, many moons ago. But and I don't think that truth has changed. It's the same. It's one that will never change just because the times change. The
Mm-hmm.
circumstances
I would
might
say
change.
I would say like you also once you figure out these things, you can't carry everybody else's emotions when they're lacking in figuring that out. You can't carry all the weight and try to
Yeah.
fix everyone and control the situation because then at the end of the day, you're taking away their chance to transform themselves and
You're gonna
you'll
try
find
though. I
healing
mean,
in the
like, people
process.
do try because that's part of
Hmm.
like some of the constructs of emotional intelligence is, once you are there, you want to like help others and fix society. So
Yes.
you're gonna start doing that, and you're gonna get a lot of pushback, which
Hmm.
goes two ways. One, you're gonna start questioning yourself, and two,
Hmm.
like those people are gonna get mad at you. So, and then that is where your emotional intelligence comes into play, where you actually know where to stop. Yeah, I mean, you cannot just march into the swamp and not get eaten by crocodiles. That's an analogy
Yeah.
that you can carry with you.
Yeah. And
You see what I
I
mean?
think
Like,
sometimes it's like, especially with like people you may have cared about or with past relationships that you want to try to reach now because you're like, oh, I want to
mhm,
share what set me free. You want to tell them, you want to show them, you're so excited and you go to them and it's like throwing a life raft into a shark tank. And instead of taking the life raft, they're cutting the scissors and blaming you for the sharks biting them. And you're sitting there
yeah,
like, okay, what is wrong
that's
here? What the heck? You're in shock. Like, what?
see now we have a whole new topic, and I think we may have talked about this. So this is where the whole detachment thing comes in, right?
I know it's going to be such a great episode. So you can leave people
Yeah,
hanging
you
here for
have to be
respect.
able to detach from the outcome of your action.
Mhm.
And then that action becomes meaningful. Because if you keep pushing, those people are going to the scissors are going to come for you next. So, like,
Yeah,
Right.
you
you
don't want all
attempt,
that.
you know where your limitations are, you know what the reactions are, and then you detach. Because you're detached, it doesn't bother
Mhm.
you. And then, maybe a second attempt will come in. And, you just
Mhm.
have to be patient for that to, appear.
Well, and you also have to recognize that if anybody is going to start to change for you or because of what you told them, then it's not really a lasting
No.
thing because people got to want
Mhm.
to change for
Yeah, yeah.
themselves. They have to
Yep.
recognize that this is something I want and I'm doing
Mhm.
it for me to better
Absolutely.
myself because if it's for a partner or a parent or a child or anything like that, then you're not taking personal responsibility for that and
Mhm.
that's an emotional thing. And if you have emotional intelligence, you realize emotions come and go and that'll
Yep.
change. So if it's an emotional thing that I mean, you see this examples of this every year with New
Mhm.
Year's resolutions. Oh, I'm gonna
Oh, yeah.
go do this, and the emotions
Yeah.
are high, and it's a new year, new me, and then you're 2 months
I
into
had
the year,
Eating
and it's
never
cake
already fall.
again.
I've
I
never
had
heard of
never made
somebody
one. I had
never.
never made a New Year's resolution ever.
It is
No.
so appalling. I never would do
It's
it because I was like, there's no way I'm getting sucked into this. Like that was me.
Mhm.
I would get so mad at everyone around me. I'm losing 30 pounds. I'm like, yeah, but you're gonna go back to eating cake in a week, Karen.
Mhm.
Like it's just like, what are you doing?
yeah,
I would just be
this
like,
so that emotion will wear off and
Mm,
then you'll be right back to square. I would argue you'll be worse off because then you're going to have the self-hate. You're going to feel like a failure.
mm.
Your
That happens, yeah.
relationships are going to be worse because you were doing a certain thing, you started to change, and then you fell back. It's a vicious cycle. So it needs to be for you. And when you recognize that with other people, when you're trying to help other people, that's when you'll also know when to pull back, is when okay, you need to do this for you. You have something, when you have the tools, you know this, we've talked or whatever, you have to do the work yourself, not do
I
it
think
for me or because of my say so.
I think to your point, Ray, I think, that so one of the traits of, I think, emotional intelligent people is knowing what to say and listening more. Because sometimes,
Mhm.
you don't want to, like, the tendency of wanting to tell everybody everything at the same time doesn't really work. So, if you are in a position where you have emotional intelligence, you listen more and then give out information as needed for that person to see the path. And like you said,
Mhm.
it's their path. You cannot make it for them. You can only like show the way. You say like you make a left turn here. Now, if he makes a right turn, that's on him, but you don't have to explain to him why you want to make the left turn or like what's down there. And like, too much information is going to make the person
Well, and
scared to
it's
turn.
like I tell Trey this all the time, but it's like you leave breadcrumbs, and if people choose to follow them, they're going to seek out what you have to offer. So that's all you need. You just need to leave breadcrumbs, and then if people are
These days, you might
hungry and
want
they're
to leave.
seeking that out,
So
huh?
these
What?
days, you might want to leave donuts. Breadcrumbs might not attract people, but yeah,
No,
that's the point.
leave donuts, Robbie. Everyone's going to get fat. Has a natural path. How can you even condone that?
That's see, they need to know not to eat the donut. They see the donut and
Are they
keep
healthy
following.
donuts? Are they healthy donuts?
Why does the person have to eat it? Did I tell them eat the donut? No. I
I
lay
mean,
the
they might be
donut,
pretty
follow the
tempted.
path, right?
Most
So
people
that's
are
that's
trying
a
to get
good point
healthy.
though, right? That's a good point. I mean, your job is to help follow the path, not eat
Mhm.
along the path what is left for you. You don't even have to, right? You can have your own way of doing it. I mean, there is no specific, plan. Like, here's A, B, C, D, you do these to get no. I mean, your plan to get there is different as long as you know where the path is. So yeah, don't eat the
And
donut.
like you shouldn't yeah, I mean there's good to have examples in life obviously and experiences, but you shouldn't compare yourself to others
No,
or you're going to be
no,
sitting there
it's
miserable.
different. Yeah.
I'm not good enough. I didn't get here quick enough. I'm not doing this fast enough and you're going to quit.
Uh,
the only thing you should look at is who you were yesterday,
mhm.
and
And who you are
you
today.
know
That's
and who
yeah.
you are today. And people make mistakes. My one of my favorite analogies is everybody falls. Just make sure you're falling forward, and then get back
Uh-huh.
up. The only failure is giving up.
Except if you're
And
in a surgery. If you're in the operating room, you fall backwards. That's a standard procedure.
Have you fallen backwards, Robbie? I want
I have not
stories.
fallen, but if I were to, I mean, it's funny you should ask that because I used to fall, I used to pass out at the sight of blood when I was little. I mean, when I was a kid,
Oh
right?
my
I
gosh,
mean,
really?
yeah, they have literally taken people out. I used to visit people in hospitals and I would suddenly pass out and I would find myself in a hospital bed and the patient would be like sitting on a chair. So,
Oh, that
but then,
reminds me. I have to share this story real quick now you brought this up because it's funny. My siblings would appreciate it, my mom. But I was like 16 when I came in the house, and I believe like my brother Dan cut his finger really bad, and there was just blood going everywhere. And Joanna comes running in, my sister, and she sees it and faints. And then Dan faints, and like it's just this whole thing. Everybody's like fainting in the kitchen together, and I like walked in, and I kind of got nauseous, and like my mom, I saw my mom stopping, going, "Nobody else faints." Like it was so funny. There's just chaos.
there's 3 or 4 people on the ground. Somebody with a bad cut.
So it's a good thing, to finish the thing that I was trying to started saying. I mean, it's a good thing that I did learn how to control these things because then, like my job, I had to be standing just beside the surgeons, like while I was doing radiotherapy. And, I didn't pass out, which is good. So there's a clue that, something has changed. Hopefully. Yeah, now it's fine, but anyway, so
I
yeah, I
never
mean,
had that problem.
yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen, because, when you're kids, you fall out of trees, and my brother used to get injured all the time. Uh, so, blood was not sign. I was like pushed out of a bus once, and I was hanging off a barbed wire fence, bleeding all
Oh
over
my
it. But,
gosh, Robbie.
it just has to be somebody else. I mean, if it's somebody else's blood, I would like not be able to handle it. I don't know why.
Do we need to
But
have an
yeah,
episode, Robbie, what it's like growing up in Robbie's homeland? We just need a
Ravi's
full
9
episode on the
lives, we
first.
can call it. Yeah.
Yeah, can we just have the stories, Robbie? We can have a whole
Yeah.
episode to dedicate to these stories.
Yeah, almost struck by
We can
lightning, shot
compare.
by yeah.
We
Anyway,
can
Yeah.
compare
yeah,
childhood stories.
Stuff that we don't really go through here in America. We're sheltered from a lot of the
yeah. I mean,
craziness.
some
That's
people probably,
we have our own level of crazy that
yeah,
the rest of the world doesn't experience as well, I'm sure, but
yeah,
it's definitely not that. Well, I I think we definitely gave some stuff for people to think about, and or the
I
people
hope,
or some people might, you know, react and come at us for talking about it. So, which is fine too, can prove our point on some of these on some of these topics.
yeah.
But we appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yeah, happy
Yes, happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.